Thank you very much, Gopal. And I want to begin by thanking President Nagayasu for his very explanatory description of the Risk Center as well as its place in Nagasaki University. I want to also thank all my co-panelists here today, as well as commentators. We have been in conversation over the last few weeks, and I have learned a lot from them already, and I'm looking forward to this discussion. I also want to thank all of you, the audience in Nagasaki. I wish I was there with you, but unfortunately, that was not possible. And I understand there are also audiences online. Thank you very much for your presence. I also want to begin by commending the Global Center for Risk for forming it at this time. This is a very important topic, obviously. It's also very timely because we are living in a precarious time where risks are becoming novel and bizarre and ununderstandable. There is a kind of discontinuity in risks that humans are facing on Earth, and we need a new understanding of global risks. So this Global Center for Risk is a very timely effort, and I want to congratulate the university for putting it together. I think Nagasaki University is really well positioned to lead on transdisciplinary research into these risks. You already have a lot of expertise in many related areas of health and tropical medicine and nuclear disasters and atomic bomb disease and uh, marine sciences, etc. And as a city, Nagasaki is very well positioned because of its first-hand experience with nuclear disasters. And I want to acknowledge the great work of Nihon Hidankyu that just received the Nobel Peace Prize for its work. Uh, I'm very pleased to be here. I hope to add a few thoughts to our understanding of the nature of global risks that I refer to as existential risks to humanity. This is a new concept and it is just being taken seriously. And I'm going to spend maybe 15, 20 minutes on a few slides that I have prepared and then talk you through why we are in this very special time, what these existential risks are, and how we address them. So allow me to share my slides. Okay. So just to begin with an outline of what I want to cover, it is kind of complex, but I want to propose that we are now entering this period of human existence that some scientists are calling the Anthropocene, which is characterized by a huge acceleration in human impacts, primarily because human population in this last century has gone up by almost 400%. And we are now putting too much pressure on Earth systems, and we are pushing planetary boundaries, as the president in his remarks had indicated. We are almost breaching planetary boundaries of life. And this is leading to increasing conflicts among humans, among nations, increased militarization. We are spending more and more money on arms and armament. And it is resulting in what I'm calling existential risks. But along with existential risks, there are opportunities. And I don't want to just talk about the risks. I also want to talk about the opportunities for humans to redefine what it means to be human and to take ourselves to a whole new era of peace. I propose the concept of planetary peace, which is guided by the principles of regenerative living as opposed to extractive living that we are currently doing, and the concept of eco-civilization as a new way of being human in the Anthropocene. So this is sort of a summary of my overall argument. Let me go into it. A lot of the research that I'm going to share with you is not new. Many of you in the audience have already seen many of these graphs. But what I want to do that is new is connect the dots between these different groups of research that have been happening over the last 50 years. And obviously, I'm not going to go into the scientific details in this short presentation, but I'll just point out some of the key lessons and then connect the dots to show you what the Anthropocene risks are likely to look like. So over here, there are two main graphs that I'm presenting. One is called the Great Acceleration, and the other one is about the rate of state-based conflicts in the world. And these studies called the Great Acceleration basically point out that in the middle of the around 1950s, the population of the world was uh, close to 2 billion, and today it has gone up to 8 billion. And as a result, we have also increased our GDP and our foreign direct investment, and all kinds of social indicators have gone up. Primary energy use, urban population, large dams, water use, paper production, etc. We are consuming more, we are producing more to satisfy the needs of the population. But what this has done, on the right-hand side of that chart, you see an increase in carbon dioxide, in nitrous oxide, in methane, in ocean acidification. In all of these are Earth system variables that are being affected by human activity. And they are being affected to a point that they are risking the way we have been living. So this kind of large impact on Earth systems caused by human activities is the source of many of the challenges that I will speak about, including climate change and other existential risks. But one of the biggest challenges that this has posed is around conflicts. Because we are consuming more, because we are producing more, we have to safeguard and protect the resources, and that is leading to increased militarization. It is leading to increased conflicts around the world, and we are seeing those conflicts emerge in the last 50 years or 75 years. This I'm not going to spend too much time on because President covered it in his talk, simply saying that the life system that supports Earth has certain boundaries. Between 2009, we were measuring and assessing 7 of the life boundaries. By 2023, we are assessing 9 of life boundaries, and we have crossed 6 of them. And on the right-hand side is the chart on income inequality. So that the way we have designed our economy to achieve the level and standards of living is actually deeply flawed because it has created too many inequalities, inequalities between nations, as well as inequalities within nations among people. There are a handful of people, less than 1% of the world population, that now controls over 50% of the world's wealth, while at the same time, 2 billion to 3 billion people are still living in what we consider multidimensional poverty. So we have billionaires on one side, and we have extreme poverty on the other side. And this is a destabilizing situation that we need to get out of. And then this is my third slide, which connects some of the resource issues. We have created an economy that is totally extractive. We are extracting out of the earth materials. The 2024 State of Resources report by the International Resource Panel shows that by 2060, resource extraction could increase by 60% over 2020 levels. Already, global material extraction out of the earth surged from 30 billion tons a year in 1970s to 106 billion tons in 2024, an increase of about 2.3% per year. And if we keep on doing this, as the population increases, we are headed towards a kind of collapse of resources. Even if we, according to the report, the IRP report, even if we follow the Sustainable Development Goals and implement it, we don't have enough resources out there to continue to grow the economies as we have done in the last 100 years. And one of the implications of extracting so much resources is that we have to protect those resources. So world military expenditures are expanding, and now they are in the range of $2.3 trillion a year. All of this basically means more conflict. All of these things, resources, population, extraction, militarization, and conflicts are all tied together in the Anthropocene. So there are two challenges that I want to summarize the Anthropocene posing. One is that we need certain amount of health and food and water and education. So humans have an aspiration to live in a reasonable way. So we need a certain amount of all of these social goods, if you will, which is the inner circle in this diagram, the social foundations. And then we have an upper limit of environmental ceiling, which we cannot exceed. So we need to find this safe and just space for human economy, for human society to operate in. And this is one of our challenges. The other challenge is that because of the way we have been doing things and extracting out of the earth without putting life back into the earth, we are now facing existential risks and mass violence that is going to emerge out of breakdown of ecosystems. This is not the violence between nations. This is not talking about wars between countries. There is a completely new source of mass violence that is breakdown of ecosystems and manifested in the form of climate change or extreme weather events, which is going to displace even further and perhaps more people than national wars. So this brings us to this concept of existential risks. The risks that we are now facing are not just a bigger version of prior risks. These are risks to existence of human life on Earth and of what it means to be human. It is displacing humans in the way we define them in terms of our rights and responsibilities and our purpose in terms of progress, order, and all our institutions. So these are all embracing risks, and they have the potential to cause, of course, massive harm, both in terms of scale that can be catastrophic, in terms of loss of life and property. It can also be massive in terms of scope, in the sense that it is not a risk that is happening just in Nagasaki or Japan or the United States or any nation per se, but it is a planetary in scope. And it will lead to irreversible altered states. These kinds of existential risks are one way to an altered state from which we will not be able to recover. So we want to avoid them to begin with. And they are systemic, they are interconnected. Some of the examples of these risks are nuclear war, climate change, pandemics, all of which are happening to some degree or the other in many parts of the world now. So we need to address the question of existential risks. And I want to begin by addressing it by pointing out that with every risk comes opportunity. And we need to think seriously about what are the existential opportunities. And we don't want to think about opportunities just as a business opportunity or a governmental opportunity or a political opportunity, but as an opportunity for a new kind of existence as humans. We can do research, and I encourage transdisciplinary, innovative, and integrative research across the sciences, social, natural, health sciences, humanities, to find new ways of being human. And I'm going to suggest that the concept of planetary peace that the Club of Rome has been working on for the last few years, attempting to redefine human existence and learning from life to be human again, and build towards eco-civilizations is one of the big existential opportunities facing us. So let me say a few words about Planetary Peace Initiative of the Club of Rome. We started it around the time when the Gaza war began, because many of our members were watching on television live coverage of the Gaza-Israel war, and we were all horrified that we are living at a time when this kind of an atrocity, which is now being called genocide, can happen. And we thought we need to address this question of peace in deep ways. And so we proposed this idea of planetary peace that is not about the traditional notion of peace. Traditional notion of peace is around national security. It is around maintaining a global order. It is around mass violence. It ignores mass violence from ecosystem collapse. And it focuses on preventing war and reducing non-combat civilian victims and refugees. You need that kind of peace, but it's not complete. It is not the kind of peace that will take care of all the challenges of the Anthropocene. In the Anthropocene, the planetary peace, which needs to be fully fleshed out, and we are working on it, but it needs to avoid also the mass violence from both national conflicts and natural system collapse. It needs to manage all impacts, not just trans-border impacts. And it needs to move us from extraction to regeneration of life. Because what we are doing by living in the ways that we have been living in the last century is we are slowly killing all forms of life. In fact, our systems, food systems, our energy systems, our uh, education system, our healthcare system has not been mindful of how it is extractive, and we need to change that. And we need to develop a new vision of eco-civilization and think about what systems need to be transformed and how we can transform them. So it's a big project. It's not a project I can solve within the next 8 minutes, or that can be solved by the Club of Rome or any other government individually. It's a collective human project that you and I, all of us in this room and online, and everyone in the world will need to participate in to rethink what it means to be human and live life in a regenerative way that makes the living systems recover, recoup, and be healthy in a future planet. So I want to say a couple more words about these two basic ideas that underlie planetary peace. One is this notion of regeneration or regenesis. It is a principle that says that we are part of a larger living organism. Some people call it Gaia, and some people call it the earth, and there are many spiritual and even scientific ways of describing the larger living organism that we are all a part of. Humans are not outside of nature, humans are a part of nature. And when you're part of a living system, you can't just extract out of it. You have to renew life. You have to revive life. You have to give back to the system. So you have to restore. So it's not just a question of not doing harm to the earth or doing less harm. It is that we need to have a positive action that reaffirms life, that regenerates life. And we can practice it in agriculture. There is something called regenerative agriculture. We can practice it in medicine. There is a field of regenerative medicine that is already taking shape. We can practice it in managing ecosystems through regenerative practices. There is even regenerative economy, regenerative finance, and regenerative organizations. So we need to move from extractive to regenerative ways of living. And on the other side, we need to have a North Star, a vision that takes us to an eco-civilization where we practice the well-being of humans on a healthy planet. So we need to think about managing not just our affairs, human affairs, but managing them in conjunction with the ecosystem so that eco-civilization can become a reality. And this is, in our way of looking at it, in the Club of Rome's approach to it, we see this as a systemic challenge. We apply the systems approach. The systems that we are most concerned with are uh, planetary peace within oneself, because we are individually systems with our own cognition and our own emotional life, and we need to be at peace before we can bring peace to our communities, before we can bring peace to others, and before we can connect peacefully with nature. So this is a way of thinking about peace that involves self, others, as well as nature. And planetary peace to us means rearming for life and disarming from the destruction of life or weapons of mass destruction. It is a mindset, it is a worldview, it is a way of thinking about the future in peace terms. So peace becomes central, and we need to design systems that are peace centric. Our economies have to become peace centric and not extractive. Our education system has to become peace centric. Our healthcare has to be peace centric, and so on. And so this is a huge systems design challenge. And each sector of the economy, each sector of society will have to rethink how we can rebuild these systems with peace at its center. Here are some of the initiatives that the Club of Rome has started up, and I won't go into details of all of them, but just want to mention that there are groups that are already working on dealing with existential risks. So the Interaction Council is a group of former heads of state who are collecting together. And in October, the group has existed for a long time, but in October 2024, they established the Existential Risk Board, and they are creating a new Security Council to deal with existential risk, because the current Security Council and the UN system is very preoccupied with just national risks and international conflicts. So this group of very senior politicians and political leaders are engaged with that, and we are working in collaboration with them. The OECD has been running workshops on intergovernmental cooperation on existential risks to create a set of guidelines for governments to adopt to deal with existential risks. Elders for Disarmament is a group that is issuing a public letter on disarmament and offering a new critique of militarism to make sure that we start moving the expenditures that we are doing in that sector towards more peaceful directions. I mentioned a few other things. Soka Gakkai, a Japanese organization, has just had a conference in October in collaboration with the Club of Rome on no limits to learning and focusing on global peace. And there are educational organizations such as Nagasaki University, plus we are also working with Hiroshima University and Kyunghee University in Seoul, Korea, as well as the Academics for Peace in Gaza, to bring about this notion of planetary peace and implement it. And on the right-hand side, you see two publications. So for those of you who are more interested in depth in looking at planetary peace, there is a concept note on planetary peace for the Anthropocene, and Enduring Peace in the Anthropocene, a set of 17 essays that are written by the Club of Rome and are available free at our website. So with that, I would say that we should be collaborating across the world to understand planetary peace together. And thank you very much for your patience. And I'm happy to address questions now or after the commentators have had a chance to give their commentaries. Thank you for your attention.